This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Sheist Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bad Movies We Love. I am your host, Nick Sheist,
the master of this stupid stuff.
Thank you for being with me today, and whether you're back again or here for the first time,
if you're listening to this, you are the Resistance.
Correctamundo, and if you want to help the Resistance, the best way to do that is through word of mouth. And in this case, I'm going to say Apple reviews probably, because reviews are probably the most functional way that somebody who doesn't listen to the show can catch a glimpse of what the show is and take a chance on it. So if you listen to this podcast through Apple, I would really appreciate it if you took the time to leave a review and a rating. And that way I can also learn who you are and say thank you. And of course, telling somebody about the show directly, sharing it around via social media is a great way to help as well. There's no obligation, no cost. All it takes is a couple of minutes of your time. And speaking of time, I'm not going to waste any more of yours. The Epic Adventure series came to a close last week, but Endless Summer starts now. I was joined for this episode by a very special guest. One of the people who helped me start the Sheist International Film Club, one of the original members, finally got him on the show. And you may know him as one of the very best analysts in all of Bills Mafia. I'm talking with Uber Hansen today, and he brought with him the most modern film we've ever covered on the show. We're talking Don't Worry, Darling from 2022.
This is exactly my type of movie, and I absolutely fell in love with it.
They're like detonating bombs underground. Like, who cares? It's the Victory Project. Like, let them blow shit up and be boys.
I just saw 1950s. I saw the cast, and I was like, all right, let's go watch this thing.
This is the worst dancing I've ever seen.
He loves himself more than he loves her. And I think that that's ultimately like a big part of this movie.
I barely make enough money to like keep the lights on in our simulation.
And he's making dinner in the simulation. He's smashing potatoes with a whiskey decanter at one point.
There's a lot of problems that you should have solved in beta testing before you got into the kidnapping phase.
Like, why introduce that vulnerability as well? Like, you basically introduced your mortality to this simulation.
Chris Pine and Florence, when they're sharing those scenes together, that's when the movie's its strongest.
A lot of that bad press, like all the history behind it, I think drove a lot of people away from this.
Hans, my man, this has been a long time coming. You were one of the, say, founding fathers of the Sheist International Film Club, and I've been wanting to get you on this show for a long time. You're a busy, busy man, and there is no sleep for football analysts during the off season. But thank you for making the time to do this. I'm really glad that we finally were able to work something out, and we get to talk about a fairly new movie. Mm-hmm. But before we get to that, for the people who, you know, have not been introduced to you yet, which I'm sure we have a lot of mutual friends amongst our Bills fans, but why don't you introduce yourself to anybody who may be listening to you for the first time?
Yeah, no, I'm stoked to be on this show. I've been trying to get on for a little bit and just get our schedules lined up, and it finally worked out here. But yeah, so for those who don't know me, my name is Hans. On Twitter, I go by Uber Hansen, and for the most part, my Twitter's full of just Bills takes, and then some occasional alcohol inducer brands, but I also will drop movie things every once in a while. I'm a huge movie fan. I try to watch as many as I possibly can, all different genres. So when you started that like film group, I was like, this is my perfect place. And it's with all the other things in life that have hit, it's hard to get it like into a spot where I can talk about movies consistently, but just for tonight, at a minimum, to talk about a movie I really do love, I'm excited for that.
Well, that's awesome. And you're wearing like a cinema sort of lightbox marquee hat as well. I wore my Bills hat for you. You wore a movie hat for me.
Yeah.
We're meeting in the middle. But yeah, so glad that you could be here. And I'm really glad that we get to revisit a movie like Don't Worry, Darling from
Mhm.
2022. It's super recent. I even thought it was a little bit older than that because it was a pandemic release, it was a pandemic production, and 2020 through 2023 all just seems kind of like 1 year, so I couldn't quite pin it down.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I honestly don't remember the first time I watched this movie. I know I've watched it probably 5, 6, 7 times at this
Okay.
point. But yeah, that entire COVID, realm of existence, all of that just is one solid year. Like it's not 3 years to me; it's 1 year for me.
It's
If even.
very confusing, and so it's very difficult to sort of gauge response to something like this,
Mm,
in that this is a movie that had a lot of bad press before it even came out. Like there was a ton of hype for it. The sort of negative press started snowballing. And then by the time it was getting released during the middle of the pandemic, there's a lot of scheduling conflicts, people not showing up, a lot of rumors flying, just a lot of sort of like bad mojo
mhm,
following this movie around. And I think that sort of earned it an unfairly negative reputation because we're looking at a movie that on IMDb has a 6.3, which is solid. I mean, that's well
mhm.
within the range of, hey, I would watch this movie without having like to second guess my
Yeah.
decision. But it does have a Metascore of 48, which is pretty low on the board. It has a Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 38%, which is the lowest number. But the audience score there is a 74. So again, like the audience, like seems like the regular person seemed to like the movie just fine. And on Letterbox, it has a 3.0, so solid 6. And our bad movies we love amalgam score is a 56.6.
Mm.
So pretty good, better than Volcano, which I just did by a few points. Volcano, I think, was a 48.4, but so there's definitely shades of gray in the realm of bad movies, but I look for anything that's under a 6 that maybe
Yeah.
is in need of a reappraisal. And I generally defer to my guest because I want them to talk about something that they really love. And
Mm.
part of what I was starting to fold into the show, it's like it's an idea that I only really had yesterday or maybe this morning, where I wanted to start like having a sort of question carousel where I'm going to
Mm.
load it up with maybe 100 different questions and then just spin the wheel, pick one of those. But I think for you, and speaking about things that we love, there's only one question that really matters, and that's what are we drinking tonight?
What are we drinking tonight? So oddly enough, I my birthday is here in about a week, and so I decided that for 2 weeks I was going to be sober, completely sober. But right now I am drinking a bubbly strawberry sunset, completely alcohol-free seltzer. It's not bad. It's not great. I would prefer a beer. I'd prefer a bourbon. I'd prefer a lot of other alcoholic drinks, but tonight at least, yeah, bubbly sparkling water is what I'm drinking.
And have you gotten into any of like the non-alcoholic sort of microbrews that have come out?
Ooh.
Because, I mean, I'm almost 40. So when I was younger and like starting drinking age, the only non-alcoholic beer that was on the market was kind of like
Mhm.
O'Doul's. And now like Budweiser, Heineken, Corona. And then there's like sort of microbrews. I think Elysian Brewing has one of them. I think Golden Road has a couple that are
Yeah.
non-alcoholic or at least within the like the 0.05 range.
Yeah, the non-alcoholic beer I haven't touched much either. I O'Doul's is my non-alcoholic beer from my quote unquote
Hmm.
youth, right? That I remember. But there's a lot of like, I think it's called Athletic Brewing. I think it's in
Yeah, yeah.
Maine, and they make just non-alcoholic beer. See, the thing is, if I'm drinking a beer, I'm drinking it because I like the alcohol on top of the taste
Yeah.
of the product. But as much as I love movies, like a big part of my movie love also stems from this addiction to rating things. And I tend
Mm.
to rate every movie I see. For a very, very long time, I did that with beer, to a point where I had rated well over 2,500 unique beers.
Wow.
But in the process, towards the end of that, what I realized was I was drinking a lot of beer I didn't like at all. I wanted to drink what I like. So I stopped doing that. Where with movies, that's never happened with me because I can watch a movie, and even if it's a really, really bad movie, I can find a way to enjoy it because really, really bad movies can be really, really funny at the same time.
Oh yeah. I mean, some of those movies are my favorites. I mean, I've done like Biodome on this show, which is like a complete mess, but it's hilarious. And it's like Pauly Shore just flexing his Hollywood power, which was a very surprising era in Hollywood where he was that marketable. But yeah, we did a whiskey club when I was younger, when I was like maybe in my mid 20s. We would all just sort of like order a bottle, get together, like sort of blind taste test it, and then figure out which ones we liked. But then that ultimately led us to like, well, let's just drink the ones that we like because we're spending like $50 on a bottle that we don't really like. And we know that this one's good. We know that the value is good. So that kind of like steered us out of that as well. And then I don't really drink anymore. So when I'm having, I think Upside Dawn is one of the athletic non-alcoholic beers from that company. And, you know, when I have it, I'm like, I like it, but also it's like I'm getting all the calories and none of the fun. So I'm like, why am I even drinking a beer at that point? I'm like, it's all optics, but you know.
Yeah. The fun is also a very important part to me. And I'm a big game guy as well.
Oh, nice.
I do enjoy drinking while I play video games. It's just something that like really triggers my interest in drinking. I'm trying to quell that a little bit from time to time just to reduce the amount of drinking. But yeah, it does add to the fun, and the idea of taking the fun out of the beverage, it just kind of doesn't sit with me.
Understandable. I mean, I was in a Madden league where it was like 32 guys that all played in the league together online. And like for a while it was great, but then there's like people that were no showing their games. And so it's like, we have a week to try and make this happen. And then it's like, all right, well, I'm going to just like drink while I wait for this guy to show up for the game. And then by the time it's like, okay, 1 beer is like, I'm very good. 3 beers, I'm awful. I can't do anything correct. So it's a slippery slope. And all of a sudden I end up getting my ass kicked or end up playing like the computer. And I'm like, why is the computer dominating me? I'm horrible at this. But I just recently got the new Madden. I took your advice. I waited until it was on sale. And then I was like, I want the hard copy with Josh on the cover. So I have that. And I'm in the middle of like playing through what would be this upcoming season. So like Keon Coleman and the rookie class and adding Scantling and them to the roster as well. So yeah, it's been all right. Back to the Super Bowl, but you know, let's hope so.
Yeah, another a Super Bowl. Well, just give me one. I think that's every Bills fan, right? Just give me one Super Bowl and I'll be happy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about on the previous show that I recorded this morning on Volcano. I was like, as a Bills fan, there's a lot of us that are like, just give us one before we die, please. That is an unfortunate mantra, but that is where we live at. So, you know, at 30 plus years of fandom, I just want the one. I want like the city and the town and like the people that really, really like are invested in the location to have it. I want like the teammates to have it. I want like, you know, I want the city to have it more than I want it for myself, but
for sure.
Okay, well, we are here to talk about Don't Worry, Darling. And I want to know what your relationship is to this film, because you said you'd watched it 5 or 6 times maybe at this point. And that's, you know, for a movie like something that I'm talking about from 1997, I think 5 or 6 times is a fair amount to have watched something in 20 plus years. But you've watched this 5 or 6 times in the last 2 years. So where did you start with this? Was this one where, you know, the marketing really got to you and you wanted to see it right off the bat? Were you a Olivia Wilde fan from Booksmart and that's kind of what drove you here?
It's really odd. Like, I didn't know what this movie was. I didn't really know anything about it. And I had heard the rumblings of the, you know, all the drama surrounding it. And the only real thing I can remember from the drama, really connected, like learned about from the drama, was at some point, Florence Pugh, I think that's how you say her last name, right? Florence Pugh. She wasn't at a red carpet event. She was somewhere else drinking like an apple teeny or something along those lines. Like that, I just remember that popping up. Maybe it was like on E before I switched the channel to Jeopardy. And so that was the connection I had at first to this movie. And then it came out and I was like, wait, this is that movie. Like, it has an interesting cast. Olivia Wilde is someone I've always enjoyed. A lot of her movies, like even what was it called, Cowboys and Aliens?
Oh,
that's a movie I watched.
If you want to come back and do that movie,
Cowboys and Aliens,
I love that movie. it's so weird and people hated it. And I'm like, why though?
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. That's what I took from that. But yeah, her. I mean, Harry Styles is always of interest. Chris Pine's been in a lot of movies I've liked. So the cast was interesting. Nick Kroll on top of that too. I'm a big The League fan, and Nick Kroll was hilarious in that. So the cast was connecting. And sorry, I'm going all over the place. Even Gemma Chan, and I think that's how you pronounce her name. Yeah. I watched Humans for a long time, which was the TV show she was on. And so all of these people, and then a time period that I find interesting, like the 1950s, let's say, or 40s, whatever it's supposed to be, I had literally no idea other than that what this movie was. So then I sit down and watch it, and the way I tell if I'm really into a movie is if I put my phone down and I'm not on my phone at all. And in this movie, very quickly, because of mainly the sound effects at the start, my phone went away. I stopped looking at my phone. I was all in on this movie. And then we'll probably get to it a little bit later in this discussion. But when there's the grand reveal of what's happening, I was like, whoa, this is exactly my type of movie. And I absolutely fell in love with it. Now, anytime I'm looking for something like early in the morning and I'm scrolling through stuff and I see it, this goes on. This is the first one I'll put on.
Oh, okay. It's one that, of course, like because of the star power of the cast, because of what was going on behind the scenes, you know, I forget if it was Comic-Con or some other panel where the trailer was first being presented and Jason Sudeikis and Olivia Wilde are going through their divorce in their personal life. And she gets handed the like divorce papers on stage at this event. And so like that was a huge blow. It just like spiraled into this thing of like, oh, Jason Sudeikis intentionally like submarined her project, yada, yada. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it happened, but I understand it being a shitty thing to have happened to you when you're debuting your film at one of these big sort of like festival events. And then it just was more and more like they're breaking up. She's dating the guy that she cast in the movie. She was actually going to play the lead role at one point until seeing Midsommar and saying, hey, I want Florence to do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, Shia LaBeouf was actually in Harry Styles' role. And there was all that back and forth with we fired him because he's like an abusive prick and work ethic issues. And then he's like, you know what? I'm not going to like take this on the chin. My PR team is not going to allow this to happen. Here's the leaked text messages of you begging me to stay on the project. And like the voicemail of like, please don't leave. Please don't leave. So there was a lot of pushback. And in that, she was very critical of Florence Pugh. And so that's why Florence did not end up doing the press tour for the film. She decided, hey, I'm going to do like whatever I'm contractually obligated to do. I'll show up for some pictures, red carpet, and then I'm not going to go sit on stage and actually like promote this movie. So you're like, if she's the star of the film and she's like, I'm not interested in like being a part of supporting this story, that's a huge downfall for when you're doing that press junket, because now everything is falling back on Olivia. And so all the questions are like, well, what's going on with Jason? What's going on with you and Harry? Like what happened with Shia? And so it's a lot of questions that aren't really even about the film. And I think that just started to like suck the oxygen out of it. And then it doesn't have the kind of release that you would hope for a movie of this size. This should be like a pretty big spring, summer type of movie, or you move it to the fall and try to do an awards push for whatever you want to do. Production design, maybe try to get Florence nominated, something like that. But I've always liked sort of like the 50s design aesthetic. Yeah. And so that was sort of a calling card for how this movie was advertised. And I really enjoyed that. And, you know, this is coming off the heels too of Black Mirror being very popular. And they don't really tell you that like in the trailer so much. Like, you know, something's weird. It's a little bit more Stepford Wives than it is Black Mirror at that point. And I was interested because, like you said, who's in it, who's attached to it. I'm willing to give it some grace, and I'm not going to not watch it, but I didn't go to theaters for it. And then it was on HBO Max within, I don't know, like a week or two. And I was like, okay, let's turn it on. So I go to look for it last night. I'm like, where is it? Where is it on HBO? It's not here. I'm like, oh, it's on Tubi?
Yeah.
So it's for free, which is good for anybody that has Tubi. And the commercials are like only like 10, 15-second ads that are spliced in. So it's not even really like loaded with commercials. So you still get a lot of the film. And it was nice to rewatch it, honestly. I feel like it's a lot better than it got credit for, but I understand sort of the weaknesses. I don't think a lot of the criticisms levied at it were necessarily about the film itself as much as they were about like the drama distracting. So later in the show, we'll circle back to what all the critics had to say, and we'll see the nasty things that they had to say and why this got rated as low as it did. But did you prepare a synopsis haiku for us? I think you did.
I did provide a synopsis haiku, and I can say I don't think I've written a haiku since maybe like 7th grade, which is quite a long time ago. So hopefully I've hit the 575 rule. That's about the only rule that I really maintained with this. So if it's not a true haiku, just bear with me. But yes, fine. I do have my haiku. I'll read it real quick for you. A beautiful place, but not my reality. Who is it he loves?
Okay. I like that. That works. I was going to do one and then I ran out of time. I was like, I need to go shopping. So let me, I was like, I'll get to it. And then I forgot. I was like, I got everything done. I've got 5 minutes to spare. And then I look and I'm like, oh, crap. Well, Hans told me he got it prepared. So you covered the bases for us. That's pretty spot on. And, the reason I started like including this as an exercise is that I want to boil the movie down to like its simplest elements, right? And I think that's kind of what it comes down to here is that you have like a romance at the center of this story. And that romance is stressed by the push and pull of what is reality and what is not reality. And that is the center of this film. And, I'm not against Harry Styles. I wish we had maybe had a more experienced actor in that role in the long term, because, I watched this movie and I'm like, Chris Pine and Florence, when they're sharing the scenes together, that's when the movie's its strongest because they're the most capable actors in the film. So it's not really surprising to see that, but we don't get a ton of that because, Frank, which is Chris Pine's character, is sort of presented as this like cult leader a little bit. And we don't see a lot of him. It's like he's this mythical figure that has created this world for them. And everybody just is very allegiant to him. And so when we see him, it's in these very like manicured, controlled doses up until like he starts to realize that Alice has figured something out and the bubble's about to burst. And that's when the movie like really hits its most interesting strides, I would say. But for the people out there who don't know, like if you had to contextualize it for them, why do you think somebody would say that this is a bad movie?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. I think a lot of that bad press, which you've already spoke about, like all the history behind it, I think drove a lot of people away from this because they viewed it as like, I'm not going to go watch this movie. And even when they watched it, I think they pulled a lot of their own opinions from those occurrences outside the realm of this movie. As for the movie itself, I do think it's not political per se, but it is attacking a certain group of people. And it's saying like, there's this group of men that are essentially in this belief that they should control all women. And this film really attacks that idea and really exposes a lot of different parts of that. And as I've watched this more and more, and incidentally, I did watch this literally this morning on Tubi in preparation for this, I paid a lot more attention prior to this show to very specific scenes because I knew where the movie ultimately went. And you start to notice all these little intricacies, especially with Harry Styles' character. And one of the things I noticed very early on was that even in this world that has been created by or for Harry Styles, for that character, by Chris Pine being Frank, even in this world, Alice, Florence Pugh, still is in control. She's still in control of their relationship, despite this being set up for him to be in control and not her. I found that to be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and I think that's why he struggles so much. Like it's framed against the backdrop of their reality where it's like he's lost his job, she's a doctor, and it's like he knows that he's punching above his weight class with her. And so he's so desperate to hang on to that he's like, well, this is the only way. And then when we're here, like, oh, well, you are happy. I've seen you happy. And he removes her autonomy, and this really is about men who are lashing out against the perception of being emasculated.
Yeah.
And when we sort of peel back and we see what is Harry's name in this movie? Jack.
Yeah.
He's sitting at his computer, like he's listening to a podcast, and it's like Chris Pine telling him, like, you can be better than this, and if you just go back to this old way, and you hear that sort of mantra repeated of like, just sink in and believe like the way that things are supposed to be. And so it is this commentary on like taking society back to the barefoot housewife that cleans the bathtub all day. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, well, it's okay because we drink and have parties at night and like everybody seems to be having fun. And that means it's okay because people are enjoying the thing that they would normally enjoy in their regular life anyway. So it is interesting to see that Jack's character is very desperate to the point where, I mean, he flat out commits a kidnapping in order to like make this situation happen. And in the documentation that he has to, I guess, sign or whatever his NDA is that he has to sign with Frank, it says like, are you providing like your own woman? Like pre-existing relationship. So it's like, yeah, this is my girlfriend. I'm going to wait till she falls asleep and then slap the simulator on her head. But that also implies that it doesn't have to be a pre-existing relationship, that Frank is encouraging these guys like, well, if you just want her, just kidnap her and then we'll put her in the simulation and she'll be your wife in there. So yeah, there's a lot of like really messy things like that are like big swings. And I don't hate that. I mean, these are some of the issues that I think the movie like really was going to thrive on before it came out. Like that's the narrative that it was pushing, is that we have this, I'm going to call it romanticism for the 1950s, especially in cinema because of the look of it. Like the mid-century modern housing, the colors, the fashion, the cars, like all this stuff seems to add up to like this idyllic former America, right? Yeah. And so we've seen that in sort of like modern politics as well, of like we're sort of trying to go back to what America was during its heyday, I guess. But this is like coming with a heavy cost here. And it's like, yes, I love the mid-century modern style. I love the way that the 50s look on screen. And I think like Olivia Wilde is very aware of that, and using sort of this very beautiful manicured setup of this Palm Springs neighborhood really gives the film like this look set against the mountains with the palm trees, like very much like out of a catalog almost. Yeah. And so it is intoxicating in that way. But like the more time you spend in there, the longer you realize that like there's a lot of bad shit that is going on. And I think that is really the story that we're getting here, because we start, they're having a party. I was like, hey, everybody looks like they're having fun. Oogum Boogum comes on and she's cleaning the bathtub. And it's like, it looks like the perception is, oh, she's having a great day being a housewife, just cleaning up and vacuuming the carpet that's not even dirty. And, so that is what the narrative of this film is and what it's tearing down in the process. And I think under better circumstances outside of the movie, it probably does a little bit better. You maybe even delay this until like now, and then you're able to like give it some legs, give it a theatrical release, although like that's not going really well for a lot of movies that are releasing theatrically right now either. But a friend of mine likes this quote: "There's no such thing as bad movies, only 20 years." So we'll see, in 2042, if this movie is being reappraised as a much more poignant examination of sort of like modern day than it gets credit for right now.
Yeah, that's actually, I like that quote. It's going to be really interesting 20 years from now in 2042, how movies connect to the 1950s, because that's so long ago. Like, it's long ago today, but at least like I spoke with my grandfather who lived through that time, and he's told me stories about that. And that's why shows like Mad Men, you can connect to it to an extent. But in 2042, when there's a new crop of children that have been born and they think about the 1950s, they're going to think about that in the same way that we thought about the 1800s. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they treat a movie like this. But I also add this. this was my introduction to Florence Pugh. I hadn't seen Midsummer prior to this. I've since seen it. That movie made me feel all the feelings. My stomach was in knots the entire time. And then I saw her in Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer has since become one of my favorite movies, probably top 2 all time for me. She's phenomenal. This movie drove me to a point where I said, I will watch anything with her in it. There's another movie where she plays I think it's a nurse, and it takes place in like the Victorian era.
I think it's called like Wonder or something like that. It was a Netflix original like last year, maybe year before.
I enjoyed that as well, but that's what happens with me a lot of times with actors and actresses that I very much enjoy is I will watch anything that they were in and I'll try to find a way to enjoy it. And for the most part, I can. So her performance in this to me was phenomenal. I also really love what you said earlier about her and Chris Pine really starred when they were together because their acting chops were just so much better than what Harry Styles were at this point in his career. And there's the scene where they're in the kitchen, and essentially at that point, Frank, Chris Pine's character, has figured out that Alice knows what's going on, and he essentially toys with her and says, like, "Yeah, keep going, like, good luck." And that also was another part of this story that I found very interesting was that his character Frank, you can just sense this idea that he despises women that have any free will, any power, anything along those lines because of the way he treats Alice when he realizes, hey, I've got you in this little rat trap here that you can't get out of, and I'm going to just watch you flounder here.
Yeah, he likes to sort of like exercise his control, and he doesn't just exert that over Alice and everybody else in there. You know, he sort of offers this promotion to Jack. And then it's like, are you the man that I think you are? Are you the man that you say you are, believe you are? Some jargon like that. And then he presents him with this ring. And then it's very ceremonial, very like stone cutters. And then he's like, okay, we're equals. And now dance like a puppet for my entertainment. And I'm like, this is the worst dancing I've ever seen, first of all. But I think it's intentionally bad to show that he just like can force this person to embarrass himself. And meanwhile, you have Olivia and Flo in the bathroom, and she's telling her in that scene, like, this is the biggest night of your husband's life. Meanwhile, it's like he's on stage getting humiliated for this promotion. It's not necessarily like the best day for him, but it is okay. He's officially like part of the boys club in a way that maybe he wasn't before. And that movie was called The Wonder. Actually, it is the same. It came out same year in 22, but I think it was a Netflix film. The first time I saw her was in Lady Macbeth in 2016. Period piece. She gets to be a little psycho in that, and you know, I saw that movie in theaters in like one of these indie cinemas out here in LA, and I was like, she's going to be a star at some point. And then she did The Commuter, I think with Liam Neeson was right after that. And then it took her a little while to like really hit after that, but she was working consistently, and she did Outlaw King. And then Midsummer was not too far after that. Little Women comes after that, which of course, like Little Women is a property that's existed for many generations. You know, she gets a lot of traction for being in that with Greta Gerwig. She gets the lead kind of, and well, not the lead, but she gets the main supporting role in Black Widow. She essentially takes over the mantle of Black Widow from Scarlett Johansson. She gets to do the Hawkeye series, then The Wonder, then Don't Worry, Darling. And the one that came out that I saw her in last year, other than Oppenheimer, was A Good Person with Morgan Freeman. And it deals a lot with like addiction and grief. And she's very good in that as well. And I think it just came out like too early in the year for it to gain traction. It's like, oh, this is a spring movie. It's not going to be an Oscar contender, but she's excellent in it because she's pretty much excellent in everything she does. Yeah.
I mean, I completely forgot that she was in the Black Widow, and then I also watched the Hawkeye series. A big Haley Steinfeld fan for multiple reasons, including our favorite football team and our favorite quarterback. But yeah, she's an absolutely phenomenal actress, and I think to an extent she kind of. Well, obviously she's the star of this movie, but she does steal the show. Like her acting chops in this really show off. She's able to play very different emotions throughout the entire thing. And you talk about that scene where they're in the bathroom while Jack's on stage dancing like a fool. The thing that really hit me now that I know what happens in this movie and watching the movie for the sixth time was Olivia Wilde's character, Bunny, and then the realization that she knows the entire time. Once you realize that, that starts to break apart a lot of the things that happen throughout this film. And even in that scene, it's her being selfish unto herself to be like, don't ruin all of this. Like, we are good here. You're ruining this. And then you add to that the fact that the reason Olivia Wilde is there, her character is there, is because her children have passed away for some unbeknownst reason. And she's made the decision to be there. And then you realize, well, everybody else under that same guise, or is it just her? And per her, there's no one else that's there for the same reason she is. But what do we know? We know that Florence Pugh isn't there of her own volition. I just found that like dichotomy very interesting, how the two of them basically approached this world in two different entryways to it.
Yeah, that's a good point because, I had seen it and I kind of I remember the main plot points, but I was like, okay, some of the finer details are a little fuzzy. So I'm looking at Olivia and I'm like, is she brainwashed to be like the plant? She's the one who's there to condition all the other women that this is normal, this is good. And then when we find out that she does know the whole time, somewhere later in my notes, I'm like, so do all the women know? Do some of them know? Is it only Olivia kind of thing? And then she reveals that story about her kids. And it's like, this is something that you really could latch onto to make her a more complex and sympathetic character. But it's kind of just shoehorned in very late into the movie where she finally is like, okay, I want to help you. And I understand why I'm not going to leave. And this is why. But yeah, I think understanding that a little bit earlier in the film may be beneficial to her as a character and to the movie as a whole.
I will say on my rewatch, because you don't find that out till just about the very end, to the truth behind that. There is a scene when Florence comes back from the electroshock therapy, and she runs into Bunny, and they're sitting out on the front lawn having drinks and smoking and what have you. And then Bunny's kids run up, and Florence Pugh runs to them and gives them a hug. In that scene, it pans to Olivia Wilde's face, and she turns and looks away from her kids, and she's to some extent crying. There's no tears flowing, but you can see she's emotional. And knowing what we know at the end of the movie, in that scene, she's basically realizing this is not real. And now I'm screwing with this woman as well. So a lot of things like that, I did not pick up on my first watch. I didn't pick up on the second, third watch. I literally picked up on them this morning as I'm watching this in preparation for the show. I talked earlier about Florence Pugh being in control of the relationship between herself and Jack, Harry Styles, early on in the movie. There's all these weird little scenes where you can kind of see that control. They have, a sexual encounter at one point, and Florence is the one in control of that sexual encounter. They are in bed at another point in time, and she wakes up from a nightmare type scare, and Jack is kind of, cuddling with her, and Jack looks behind him and notices that he's the one on the side of the bed, and his entire bed is left alone. He's basically the one trying to hold on to her. And there's all these little moments throughout the movie about all this connection where Jack's like, I need this, I need this, I need this. The one thing that really did hit me, though, about Florence Pugh is, why was she so different than the other women? What set her apart that made her the one that was like, she could kind of get out from this and the other ones couldn't? And we're assuming, or at least I'm assuming, a lot of them didn't know outside of Margaret, who was the impetus for all of this chaos to occur. But why was Florence Pugh the one that could get out and the other ones couldn't?
That's a fair question, because I asked very early on to myself, why even question the egg in your hand? What happened that would cause that? And right before that, we do sort of get this earthquake. And so I'm curious if that is maybe a software malfunction, and so those are little ripples that are starting to show the edges of this. I have
reality. That in my notes. What are the earthquakes? That's one. At a point there's a plane, and I was like, what is the plane? They answered that question, but what are the earthquakes? That I don't know what those are.
Yeah, because the ladies in the equation are like, whatever, they're detonating bombs underground, who cares? It's the Victory Project. Let them blow shit up and be boys and let them have their fun. And so the only way that I can sort of rationalize it is that is the actual reality that they're in is kind of precarious. So as it shakes, maybe these are the things that sort of give her the ability to see something that wasn't there. And she's one of the only people that's actually like invested in Margaret as a character.
Yeah.
And something that I didn't see watching it this time that I now need to go back and check again is that first instance of Margaret and her husband arguing at the house during the pool party. She sort of sees her and he reaches out his hand. She like slaps it away and then the curtain gets drawn. But apparently, like when the curtain gets drawn, there's a very quick cut to a scene of, was it Margaret that's laying in bed or is it Florence that's in
Florence
bed?
in bed. Yeah.
Okay. So like, I don't even see that. But it's like, okay, we're showing our hand very early in the film. It's just, we're not going to sort of like overload you with that right now. And so like, maybe she just is not as susceptible to the brainwashing because she was kidnapped in that situation. And she's, when we cut back to her as a doctor, like she's very autonomous, like she's a woman of like a powerful position. And when she comes home, she's like, I don't have time for your bullshit. I've been working a 30-hour shift. I got to sleep for 6 hours. Like I get like that you're horny or whatever, but like I got shit to do. And like you're looking fucking gross and shabby right now and you're jobless. And I just need to go to bed and wake up and do this all over again tomorrow. So she's in a position where Harry perceives it as like, oh, you're unhappy. And then, she has to confront him with that at some point later and say that like, it was my choice to like do what I wanted to do. It's not your decision to make, regardless of whether or not you think it makes me happy. So I think that's an interesting sort of like fulcrum point for this story, is that she would still rather choose her own autonomous unhappiness over this manicured fake life that has been provided for her. Because like Harry's like lecturing her about what he has to go through. I barely make enough money to like keep the lights on in our simulation. And it's just like, so don't do that then. Like she still loved you. You were still together. She loved you when you were broke. You didn't need this life, but you let some asshole on the internet convince you that this is what you needed to do in order to like take back your manhood or whatever bullshit he's selling him on. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but there's a point where like, I don't know if he's pleasuring her with his hand or with his mouth at that point, but it seems like that's also making the world malfunction. So I think that is something about sort of like the pleasure dynamic of she's in this place where like she's getting this fake pleasure that isn't really replacing the pleasure that she gets from being an autonomous person making her own decisions. And so maybe that's why. Maybe they have better sex than all the other couples in the neighborhood. And it's like literally the world is shaking because of it.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point and very interesting way to look at it. And I think like the whole thing with Jack too, that really hits me is how I don't know the best way to say this, how much of an absolute loser he is in the real world, to a point where there's again two scenes here that I connected together. But there's one when she first almost escapes and she passes out and he's just like, yeah, you're just sleeping. I'll make you dinner. And he's making dinner in the simulation. He has legitimately no idea. He's smashing potatoes with a whiskey decanter at one point. And then like all that, whatever happens in that scene, then we go back to the real world. And there's the scene what you were talking about where she comes home from working 30-hour shift, where he's just on his computer the entire time, not doing anything of importance at all. And he basically says to her, like, I'm hungry. And she's like, well, why don't you eat? And he's like, well, because you didn't tell me what you wanted. And it's like, no, that's some bullshit that you're saying right now. You didn't eat because you're not capable of cooking for yourself. You're an absolute waste of space. And you look at him in this fake world and he's this successful, really good looking guy. Like that's his world. And then in the real world, he's this absolute disaster. That's why like in that haiku, my final line is, who is it he loves? He loves himself more than he loves her. And I think that that's ultimately like kind of a big part of this movie. That dancing scene you spoke about where he's dancing on stage and Chris Pine's kind of egging him on. That scene really drives home the idea that this is the men's world. The women are just a part of it. They're pieces to this bigger puzzle that the men think that they fully covet those women. They really don't give a damn about them. They just need them there to be that side piece that fits along with this story of what they believe their life is supposed to be.
Yeah, and he absolutely gaslights the shit out of her too when she knows something is wrong. And he's like, "Oh no, none of this is true. You're just like you're stressed and here's some money, go shopping. Like don't worry about it." And we do see that he loves the fantasy of his own success much more than he loves her. She becomes like his trophy wife in that moment because it's like he knows that she's a doctor. He knows that she's smart and successful and independent and capable. And it's almost like keeping her on a leash is what gives him his manhood. And so that is very, not hidden from us by the time we get to the end of the film. I think she convinces him like, "Hey, trust me, leave with me. Let's leave." And he's like, "Okay, we'll leave." And then they get in the car and all the dudes in the red jumpsuits come out and just yank her out of the car while she's screaming. And he's like, I'm sorry, I love you." And it's like, no, you don't. You obviously love yourself and this bullshit much more than you love her. So like, who are you trying to convince at this point? And I think that's part of it too, is like the guise of what he's doing, saying that he loves her. Like he's using all of the things that he's done as this justification for like, I love you and I want to provide for you. And it's like, no, you don't. Like none of that is true. So that's really, I think, where his character matters to this film, is that he is this example of a guy who doesn't offer anything really to the relationship, yet he feels this level of entitlement that he should be successful and have great suits and a nice car. But yet when it comes down to it, like he lost his job and he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to crawl down like an internet rabbit hole and be radicalized to the point where I feel like this is a good idea. And as soon as she falls asleep, it's kidnapping time. So like, that's maniacal behavior. And that is the point.
Yeah, and even in that the true reality of it all, she's still reassuring him. She's still like, yeah, you'll find a job. We'll be okay. I'll pick up more shit. Like she's basically in control and saying like, I still love you. We'll figure it out. And he just can't accept that. And that's ultimately where all of this kind of chaos comes from. And one of the scenes, I actually didn't really even think about it until just now, is the very final, the final scene where she's about to escape. And then her vision of him kind of comes up behind her and hugs her. Like he's deceased at this point. And I think that's kind of telling that she still truly did love him. It just, it was time for her to let go. She had to let go and go, be herself at this point. And the wild thing is now she wakes up in this bed that she's strapped down to with these things on her eyes. She has to find a way out with a dead body next to it. It's just absolute chaos. I think what follows this and what she's going to do as a result of this.
Yeah, and I like that. Like you're left with this notion of like there is more there, and that's kind of just where we're going to stop this story. Like, because there's not going to be a sequel. And when you had your film club pick, you picked Ex Machina. And that movie sort of ends in a similar way, too, where it's like the door is now open to this new world of possibilities and sort of fantasizing about like what the next hour of that movie were to look like if it were to continue is an intriguing possibility here. And it's just Jack is such a dick in this. He really is. So it's like, okay, Harry Styles, like you don't even sing in this. So like, what do you bring into the table other than your suits and your nice car, which is just handed to you in a simulation anyway. So
you brought up Ex Machina. That's this movie for some reason, and these are three movies. I love Ex Machina. I love this movie. I also love 500 Days of Summer, and all three of those movies, like 500 Days of Summer and Ex Machina, for some reason connect to this movie for me. Like it has similar ideas that you're questioning reality in Ex Machina the entire time. What's real? What's fake? Who's lying? Who's telling the truth? And in 500 Days of Summer, for basically the entire movie, you're given this idea of this perfect relationship where they're truly in love with each other, and how could it possibly fail? And then you get to see behind the veil and you see that it wasn't as perfect as it was made out to be. And this has a similar, by a very different way, but a similar idea of what's happening.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a good time where we jump to the trailer and we take a look back at what this movie was telling us that it wanted to be and how it tried to sell itself. Let me screen share with you. Before we get to the trailer, it's time for a quick word from today's sponsor. We've all heard about people who can lucid dream, and research suggests that about 55% of people have had at least one lucid dream in their lives. However, achieving that on a regular basis is difficult. While free-roaming lucid dreams on demand are still a few years away, you can have a guided experience thanks to Dreamscape Eye Drops, the all-new lucid dreaming escape room brought to you by Blacklist Entertainment. Dreamscape Eye Drops are meticulously formulated with a special cocktail of psychoactive ingredients to get you on the right wavelength as you go to bed. Once you place the drops, you just have to select one of the environments from the app and your guided journey begins. There are hundreds of selections to choose from and levels are updated weekly. You can even buy upgrades and powers from the online store. However, once your experience begins, you won't be able to wake up until you've escaped. So don't waste too much time because you don't want to be stuck forever. So if you're looking to upgrade your sleep experience, choose Dreamscape Eye Drops. And now, back to the show.
Okay, you see that okay?
Yep.
Make sure the volume is not going to deafen us.
I have it. Focus, right here. Let's have a little drink.
Yeah, this at least looks like they're having fun. So this is where we start. It's like, dancing, drinking, doing donuts in the desert.
You and me.
Always. You and me.
All of you wives. We men, we ask a lot. We ask for strength, food at home, a house cleaned, and discretion above all else.
Boys and their toys. At least we know they're getting work done.
There you go.
Welcome to the Victory
Nuclear
Project.
testing in the
We're
desert,
all
whatever.
here because we believe in the mission.
What are we doing?
Changing the world.
What are we doing?
Changing the world.
That's right.
What do you think they're really doing out there?
What do you mean?
The
Interesting
one
to
thing
see
they
that
ask
other
of us is
character
to
ask
stay
that
here,
question besides her.
where it's safe.
Also, they exposed the plane in two different ways in that
Do you
scene.
even
That's
know what the
interesting.
Victory Project actually is? Have you ever asked?
Do you?
Please. What's actually happening?
Stop it, Alice.
What if this place is dangerous? What if...
No. Jack, it's okay. I'm curious to hear where she's going with this.
And it's like, Frank likes being challenged only enough to give himself the opportunity to,
I need you to listen to me.
exert his ideas. Not so much that he actually wants to admit that he's wrong in any way.
We are not going backwards. We're pushing forward.
By going back to the 50s.
Crazy. And I'm not crazy.
Our life together. We could lose this.
I don't trust it. And I don't want to be here anymore.
I would watch it.
I'm telling you, like, I had literally no idea what this movie was about. I had no idea. I just saw 1950s. I saw the cast, and I was like, let's go watch this thing.
I mean, it's a good trailer in that it lets you know enough that she's in a world where you're not sure what's going on, but they're not outright telling you, hey, this is like a simulation type event. We're going to give you a lot of good like set dressing. The costumes are going to be on point. The cars are going to be gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have fun visually watching this film, and Flo's the star. So just like, she's the North Star. Follow her. She'll lead you to the promised land. And yes, I do want more Chris Pine because I think Chris Pine is a very good actor. And I feel like, the movie is at its best with the two of them getting to sort of intellectually battle over what is actually happening there. Because Jack is just like, oh, I know that you're telling me these things, but I'm literally not going to listen to any of it, even though I know you're telling me the truth. Meanwhile, at least when she's complaining about the circumstances of her reality, Frank is like, well, I'm interested because most of the other women here don't ever push back on this. And this is more engaging behavior than I get from most people. But we see here something that we didn't touch on was the ballet, the synchronized dancing, the sort of like hypnotic nature of that. And I'm like, wait a second. So, I mean, I know Florence is fairly young, but she's maybe like 30 now, somewhere in that neighborhood. But for most of these women, they're probably in their 30s. I'm like, is there really like adult ballet classes like that for housewives? Or is this just another measure of control? Like the thing that they do recreationally is go and practice ballet, this like synchronized dancing that they do. So, I think visually it works for those sequences where we see the projection of the synchronized dancing that looks very hypnotic and like you're almost like you're looking through a kaleidoscope to a degree. But yeah, to have them all go to this like adult dance class, and then what else do we see them do? Oh, they're like shopping, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I have infinite money to do all these things, and just shopping. Like a man's perception of what makes a woman's life good is that she can just have an infinite shopping spree and go do ballet classes like she's an 8-year-old. Like that's where I think the meat of this film is. And it maybe doesn't maybe nail down those ideas as well as I would hope, but it is making those comments. And I think the guys in the red jumpsuits, kind of like Matrix agents, are a little bit much for what I'm hoping for. Like when they pop out all at the end, they're like chasing her in a foot race. I'm like, the first time I saw it, I laughed because I was like, what is happening here? I was like, did I miss something? Because we first see the two guys in the jumpsuits and they're movers. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. They're just kind of like involved in every aspect of life. But then they just pop out of like every corner when something bad happens. Like, were they just like standing behind the house? Do they just drop into this like they're spawning for the first time, like a video game? Are they really like agents where they just take over someone's body when they need to? There's a lot of questions about like the technicalities of this world that I tried not to get bogged down by. But I'm like, I know Hans is a programmer.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Do you get stuck up on that kind of stuff and like ask yourself those questions?
Yeah, I did actually. So like the for instance, she escapes. There would 1,000,000,000% be some sort of code written in that's like she can't escape by herself. She can only escape if they essentially allow her to, with some sort of code that's not just touching a window. So the idea of like they then have these, like you said, the Matrix style guys that can't catch her. Yeah, they could just be superhuman, artificial intelligence that could catch her. She should not be able to outsmart them in this world that they completely control. So that's another part to it that kind of was not the best, to be honest. I did find myself a lot of the movie wondering who is real, who's a real person in this world and who isn't. And like one of the first people I questioned, she's on that bus at one point in time, and she's like, pull over to the bus driver, like we need to go get the plane. And the bus driver's like, I can't go that way. I don't know if he's real or if he's fake. I'm going to presume he's fake, and we know there's fake people in this world because we know the children are fake. So that's something that I found myself questioning a lot. But to the point about like the guys in the red jumpsuits chasing her, yeah, I'm with you. That was a little bit much, and from somebody that is a programmer, and while I'm not a gaming programmer or a simulation style programmer, I do know that it isn't that hard to write in lines that protect you from vulnerabilities, such as allowing somebody to escape that you don't want to escape.
That's a good point. I never considered the possibility of like NPCs. I was like, okay, the kids aren't real. I get that. They're not plugged in. They're just simulations. But yeah, you mentioned the bus driver, and he's very much like, I can't go that way. It's not part of my route. I've hit the end of my route. I need to turn around. Like he's sort of like stuck in a closed loop where the only thing he can do is like say hello, goodbye, on, off the bus, drive in this circle for infinity. Because I mean, even that guy in his real life would have to be like the most desperate to be like, you know what? I want to live in your Victory Project world, but as the bus driver. I don't want the Corvette. I don't want the wife and all the fancy job and suits and all that. I just want to drive the bus out in the desert. Like that's my fantasy as a man. I don't see that happening. So yeah, he's probably an NPC of some kind. And that would help to populate like all of the storefronts and everything like that, where you need, hey, restaurants, bartenders, any of those things. But they do a lot of drinking in this movie as well. And I guess you could theoretically write some sort of a code that would tell your brain to like, hey, send this electrical signal to this part of your body. So it simulates you being drunk. But yeah, I was like, I wonder how you look at this film from like a programming side. And I'm glad that you shed a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, the programming side, like the programming perspective of it was honestly the roughest part for me because it just was full of vulnerabilities, and somebody that is smart enough to develop an entire world that's this beautiful simulation. Yeah, you're not going to leave those vulnerabilities exposed. But just real quick on the topic of like other characters and who they are and what they are, whether they're NPCs or not. The one character I left the movie saying like, I don't know what her deal was Shelley, Gemma Chan's character. At the very final time we see her, she stabs Frank and she says, "It's my turn now." What does that mean? Like, does it mean it's my turn to control a simulation like this? Did she know the entire time? She does stand at like her I don't know, she's in her kitchen at one point, and this is when Florence is basically crashing the entire simulation. There's light bulbs exploding everywhere, and she almost stares into the distance like she's being awoken at this point in time. But they don't really ever answer the question, was she aware of what was going on or was she not aware?
Yeah, that's a good question. If I had not seen her in Humans for like several years before that, I wouldn't be as inclined to be like, well, of course she's an artificial intelligence. But Frank also doesn't seem like the type of character who would have like his wife on board with this project.
True.
Unless like she was incredibly desperate, which she's not as desperate as like Olivia Wilde's Bunny. Like that would make sense for her to be like, I am in this because I get to see my kids. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason that I've aligned myself with Frank. So it makes sense for her, but for Gemma Chan, I'm not so sure. And then similarly in Ex Machina, we have the artificial intelligence program that rebels against Oscar Isaacs at the end. I think stabs him as well.
Yep.
And is like, okay, this is like a assertion of my own freedom. So it could very well be that this is a program that is like, hey, I've become self-aware in the process of like being here, and now I'm going to kill the guy that I know is responsible for all this, and I will run the simulation. And I like the idea of her being a human better, mm-hmm. that she has given Frank slack to create this program, to create this world, to recruit these guys, and in his development of it, it fails. And so she's like, it's my turn now. We're not going to do things this way anymore. And now I'm going to be in charge. And she, takes him out for that. So I could see her being human in that way, and her just wanting to be power hungry as well. Cause it's okay. I can buy into that. Like, maybe she wants control and power of her own, and she just wants to do things her own way. Maybe it's going to be like gladiator times, and like all the men are going to be slaves, and she's going to be Cleopatra. Like, who knows what the simulation is going to look like with her in control. But yeah, it's sort of to eliminate Chris Pine's character in that way, when it seemed like it was building towards a much bigger confrontation with him and Frank, or with him and Alice. To do it that way left a lot more questions than answers. So I'm with you that I don't know if she's a person or not.
And to that end, too, the other thing that I'm confused about, and this also goes back to the programming as well, why do the men die? If the men die in the simulation, they die in real life, a la, what is it, Elm Street? But if if the women die in the simulation, they don't die in real life. Like, why introduce that vulnerability as well? Like, you basically introduced your mortality to the simulation where you've made all the women completely immortal. So essentially, you've facilitated a situation where they have way more power if they become self-aware of what's happening. If they realize I can die and it doesn't affect me at all, they could just go on an absolute killing spree and dominate that entire world. I don't know why you'd introduce that. And maybe that's just a point that was lost on me throughout the movie, that like I didn't get the symbolism of it. But that was one that was kind of odd to me to watch the entire time.
I think we could maybe rationalize it in that if Frank is just a cult leader, he's not the guy who built the simulation. He recruited some horny, lonely nerd to make the simulation for him. And that guy was distracted by like, hey, I'm going to have a woman and a job. And maybe it's the doctor guy that checks in on everybody because he's tall and gangly. And like, I don't even see him with a woman in the movie, So it's like, you're just kind of going to be the nerd that is my right-hand man that takes care of this stuff. And maybe that guy wasn't the best programmer in the world. And he left a lot of those vulnerabilities. So like I can kind of give it that grace if I want to. But yeah, if I think too hard about it, I'm like, there's a lot of problems that you should have solved in beta testing before you took this project live. Before you got into the kidnapping phase of your project, you should have probably tested to make sure that like you guys don't die while you're in the simulation.
Yes.
No, let's create a fake world where if I die, but these women that we kidnapped will survive. Not the brightest. So I do think if you look at Frank as a character who sort of is like drinking his own Kool-Aid, it's the hubris that brings him down, right? He is a character that is so firmly set in his beliefs that this world that he's crafted is the future. It's the way forward by going back. It's all of these measures of control. He's so drunk on that like he can't see the simplicity in front of him. So it's like I can buy into that. Like, because Frank doesn't necessarily have to be smart. He just has to be charismatic.
Yeah. The word hubris, I actually have that in my notes too. The hubris of Pine and Stiles at the dance in particular really hit me. Essentially, Alice is starting to realize what's happening here and starting to crash down this entire world around them. And Harry Styles and Chris Pine realize that, or at least have an idea of that, and they could give two damns. They're like, no, let's go give you a promotion. Let's do a dance on stage. Like the hubris to realize that something bad is happening, but it doesn't matter because let's enjoy ourselves is wild. And like that was a really sticking point to me. So have you used the word hubris for Chris Pine in particular, because that really stuck out.
Yeah, and that scene is like troubling for a lot of reasons. And I mean, we've already talked about Jack being a total D-bag and like not really being worthy of Alice's time, but we see that in that moment she's super vulnerable and she's like, I need to go home. Like, we need to leave right now. And he's just like, no, like, I want to be here for the party. Like, I don't give a fuck what you're feeling.
For the fake party, for the not real party. Yeah.
Which he knows isn't real, but I guess like the promotion kind of is, but still like he gives no consideration to her feelings at any point, I think, during the film. And that's really where the line gets drawn, is like, he believes himself to be the hero of this story, even though he gives no real care or consideration to the woman that he supposedly loves. And I think that's like a strong commentary throughout the course of the film as well, because we get these things of the doctor checking in on her and he's like, oh, it's just like run of the mill exhaustion, right? Like all of these dismissive gaslighting phrases that were used in the 1950s of like, hey, you're just going through like hysteria, right? Like all this bullshit of like, we're not taking people seriously. So I think when I was able to look at it a little bit more broadly, this sort of experience that she's going through isn't just the simulation. It's sort of meant to express the frustrations of the general housewife from the 1950s that don't want to be stuck doing chores, that don't want to just be like their husband's arm candy kind of thing. And so people in her position in real life in the 50s were labeled as going crazy or being hysteric, or you're just exhausted. Here's a bunch of pills to take. You know, here's a bunch of like lithium or Xanax to like make you feel less shitty about your shitty existence kind of thing. And so I think that was pretty adeptly handled for the most part. And, you know, it lends itself to the moments of her awakening, we'll say, where whether it's the egg or the steak, which somebody had mentioned sort of at the beginning, like, how did the steak get flipped? Because the idea is to show that the steak is burning, but you can't show that it's burning by showing the side that's cooking because that side is face down. So just, you have to be like, okay, we're turning the steak over to show that it's burning, but like logically that doesn't add up. And someone had mentioned that at the very beginning, and I was like, oh, I finally understand this thing that someone told me 2 years ago about this movie. But you know, we get this moment where she's just like, I'm going to shrink wrap my fucking head.
Yeah.
Because I can't take it anymore. And I think that, like, even if you were to remove the simulation aspect storyline and just have it be about her frustrations with her station in life and being dismissed by her husband and really having nothing to do other than go to ballet class and go shopping and hang out with the girls, I think that is like an apt representation of that frustration. And, you know, it allows her to actually shrink wrap her own head in the movie, which is pretty crazy. It's like we're going to have our multi-million-dollar star of the film, risk suffocating themselves over this one scene. So, I mean, I'm glad that she has like the stones to do something like that and to like do it for the camera. And I'm sure they were as safe as they possibly could be. But yeah, it gives it like authenticity to her struggle and to her panic and her anxiety in a way that the egg or the lights bursting or some of like the reality perceptions don't necessarily communicate. Like this is suicidal ideation, which we don't see a lot of throughout the rest of the film. Like we can see that she's frustrated and that something weird is going on and that she like doesn't feel trusted. She doesn't feel valued. We see all these things, but to the point where she actually wants to end her own life to escape this thing is, I think, that moment like really hits that really well.
Yeah, and that seems to set her character and Margaret's character apart from all the other ones, is that they're willing to go to that absolute extreme where they're saying this world, regardless of if in that case she's still kind of believes that world exists. She's not exactly sure. Florence Pugh's character is not exactly sure what it is, but she's willing to end her own life over it. Where Margaret's character is pretty clear that this is not the real world. We shouldn't be here, essentially, and chooses to kill herself. And it's in multiple times, I believe. So it's interesting to look at those two characters, and it kind of brings up that question that I said earlier in the show is, what it sets them apart, and it has to be something along the lines of their aspirations in the real world are just so strong. Like these two people are so strong-willed that pulling them into this world that they just simply do not fit into, that they can break out of it. Where a character like Peg seems more content to be a part of this world. And one thing on Peg and the difference between Peg and Alice is they talk about kids all the time. Peg is clearly pregnant, and Alice is like, no, we don't want kids. That's not in this world for us. And then in the panic that Jack has later in the movie, he says, well, we'll have a kid. Like, we'll have a kid. Like, he's trying to find another way to control her. And he's trying to leverage the control that a child brings to use that against her when she's adamant. She's like, I don't want a kid. And then Margaret, to some extent, ended her kid in the desert. So we see kind of the difference of like how they're trying to be controlled, or how they are being effectively controlled when you look at somebody like Peg and you look at somebody like Alice and you look at somebody like Margaret.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's kind of like a throwaway line of dialogue that happens at the dinner party with Peg, and I guess she's perpetually pregnant, like in this world, like she's just always at like 8-9 months about to give birth because it's just not real anyway. So her entire like character design is just like, oh, she's always pregnant. And we get this moment where she's like, I hope it's a boy because girls are so difficult. Like, it is just this very like casual moment from a female character, like that the ideas of women being so difficult were so pervasive that even a mother was like, I'd rather have a boy because I wouldn't want to like raise myself, kind of thing. I'm like, damn, that's really sad. But it is, I think, a good job of writing and trying to tell the real sort of nuts and bolts of what this story is. I think that's a good example of it. And when you think about her being perpetually pregnant and the idea that, like you said, Jack essentially trying to weaponize pregnancy as a measure of control, like, in his own mind, he's either like, we're going to get a simulation baby, or you can lay in bed captive at home and I'll bring in a wet nurse and we'll birth the baby and then we'll hook the baby up to the simulator too. Like either of those roads is just so dark and twisted. And Jack is so caught up in his own fantasy bullshit that he can't see past like hurting the person that he tells himself that he loves so desperately.
Yeah, it's wild, and it becomes pretty clear throughout the movie that Jack's one true love is Jack and Jack alone. Florence Pugh is just an ornament that's in his life, or that he demands to be in his life.
And I think that is sort of like really reflective of the core ideals of the story, and like probably where the story idea started is that like, well, what if we go back to the 50s and start to deconstruct what that life looked like and what it meant for those kind of people, and then build it out into a bigger, more modern idea. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's how like it kind of incubated, but I think now is a good segue to jump into trivia.
Time for trivia.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's see. We've got 3 questions on the board. Number 1. The Victory Corporation HQ is the iconic Volcano House in the Mojave Desert here in California. It was owned by which PBS TV personality before being donated to Chapman University?
I have no idea. I have literally no idea. Oh my God.
These were very difficult questions to come up with, to be fair, because so much of the trivia was like, did you know that there was a rumor that Harry spit on Chris Pine? I'm just like, oh my God, this is not the kind of trivia that I want to ask.
What's the answer to that question, though?
It is Huell Hauser.
Okay.
We are going somewhere that very few people have ever been.
Classic PBS personality. He's got that like sort of monotonous droning voice, like, oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, Huell's great because it's like, even though he came across sort of like droll in that way, he was always very genuinely interested in the subjects that he was covering for PBS and very like educational stuff too. So kind of interesting to think that like he owned this house out in the middle of the desert like that. It's so stylistic for a guy whose personality was basically like button down khaki. So very cool.
Interesting.
All right. So question 2. The choreographed dancers are based on the musicals of which classical Hollywood director from the 1930s?
I'm not going to have the answer to that one either. But hit me with
You walked into a buzzsaw of trivia questions
I did.
Today, unfortunately. It is Busby Berkeley, who sort of started in the 1930s, worked until, I want to say like the 50s. Last movie was, 1951. But directed Annie Get Your Gun in the 50s, Romance on the High Seas, Cinderella Jones, We Must Have Music, Babes on Broadway. Very, very, very famous director from the 30s. So kind of interesting to see that there was elements of older Hollywood styles that were also folded into this like romanticized version of the past where, you know, one of the bonus trivia things that I came across was that, you know, we see Harry go into the bathroom at one point, Jack, and he washes his hands, but he's using like a liquid pump hand soap dispenser, which didn't exist in the 1950s. And some of the music that they listened to was a little bit like across decades. So it wasn't nailed down to that. It was like just the visual aesthetic and then whatever else I guess Frank wanted to fold into his simulation.
Yeah, that was something I was actually, I don't know if I ever would have looked it up, but like the music that they're playing, I was interested. Like, does this music fit this era? Or are there things that are coming a little bit later that just for whatever reason got dropped into the simulation?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think Frank hired the best guy to do the coding for him. So they're like, whatever. I mean, he's like, it's from the past. They'll never know the difference. Okay, question number 3. Kiki Lane stepped in to play Margaret after what other actress dropped out due to scheduling conflicts?
I don't know the answer to this, but if you say the name, I will be honest if it's the person I'm thinking of whose name I cannot remember.
It was Dakota Johnson.
No, what?
She was
not at all who I was expecting.
She was filming The Lost Daughter with Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley at the time, and I guess it just didn't work out, so they ended up replacing her. And then Keke Palmer's in the movie, but they kind of just like strip Margaret down to like, hey, she does an angry face, she kills herself, and she's barely in the movie at all. And she said the best. It was Keke Palmer said the best experience from the film was getting to meet her boyfriend at the time. She's like, she didn't think highly of the film either. So it's kind of like, you know, it's really poisonous. They should have all signed NDAs like until the movie was at least like out for a month, because all of the stars coming out and being like, this was a nightmare shoot kind of thing is not what the kind of press you want before the movie hits theaters, especially when you're really trying to like bank on the idea that you want to get people back in theaters in 2022 and you're really trying to sell movie tickets. Any bad press is really going to kill you at that point.
You know, like thinking about Dakota Johnson, just her face and like her demeanor and other things I've seen her, and she actually might have just fit that. She might have fit that role. It's not the person I thought you were going to say at all. I'm trying to look up the person I thought, but yeah, Dakota Johnson. That's interesting. Not the name I in a billion years thought you were going to say.
Yeah, and she's got like, you know, she's kind of hit or miss where it's like she does something like Madam Web and people like, you know, drag her for it and they're just like, this movie's horrible, it's all her fault, which it's not. But, you know, I think given the right sort of opportunity, the right script, the right character, she does well. It's just a matter of whether or not she's going to take the projects that most fully benefit her as a performer. And I think, you know, Olivia Wilde said that what was it? Truman Show and Inception, I think, really influenced this movie. But
Truman Show, yeah.
It's interesting to hear that and then see that it's like this is very Stepford Wives. Like you didn't cite that as an influence, and all of the other references to Alice in Wonderland, from the main character being named Alice, the looking glass where she's literally touching glass several times that like forces a hallucination. Her neighbor is Bunny, like the white rabbit. So there's so many Alice in Wonderland things. It's kind of hard to think that none of that was mentioned as influences, but I'm sure that they worked their way in there just because they're big pieces of like pop culture. And when you're going to tell a story like this, you kind of have to start with the Stepford Wives and then build out from there. Like, how are we going to make ourselves different from that? Another cool piece of trivia was that there actually is a club, or was a club, called the Dollhouse in Palm Springs, where the movie was filmed, because of its adherence to a lot of mid-century modern architecture throughout the city. So like Palm Springs is this kind of like idyllic version of what the 50s look like. If you're going to go anywhere to shoot a movie that like has to look like the 50s, it basically has to be Palm Springs.
Yeah, it fits. Like, I'm trying to think. Again, now I'm blanking on a movie or TV show that took place in Palm Springs that's supposed to be in that era. But yeah, like that just seems to fit this aesthetic, right? Like if I live in upstate New York, you couldn't do this where I live. Like this vision did not exist where I live. It's a very different place compared to what I expect to see in a movie like this.
Well, I'll give you one additional sort of bonus question opportunity. Okay. Olivia Wilde said she based the character of Frank on what real life, I'm going to call him a pseudo celebrity?
Oh, pseudo celebrity.
It's like he's famous, but not for acting.
Oh my goodness. I mean, no, I'm not going to have the answer to this one either. I'm interested in it.
Jordan Peterson.
Okay. Yeah, it had to be I guess I would have said, if I thought about it a little bit more, I would have just thrown out a name like Joe Rogan, just as like a podcaster that has a big following. But Jordan Peterson, interesting.
He's been on Rogan's podcast, so
yeah, it fits.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that wraps up trivia. That's all I got for us here. And I mean, is there anything you wanted to touch on that we didn't get to cover before we jump into the next segment?
No, I mean, I'll just throw out there again, like this movie might not be everybody's cup of tea, but for a lot of the reasons we said, whether it's setting, whether it's I also talked about the music or the volume of things early on, the sound effects. I thought they were phenomenal. And Florence Pugh is quickly becoming one of my favorite actresses in all of Hollywood, maybe ever. She has such a career ahead of her. I'm super excited to see what she comes out with next.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend A Good Person, just to see her sort of play a broken character. And then Lady Macbeth is just like her getting to be sort of an unhinged character. So it's a lot of fun. It's sort of like before her stock had risen to the point that it is now. So yeah, a period piece, of course. So like if you're not into that, then it's give or take, but it's a lot of fun. I want to say, you mentioned the music, you mentioned the sound design several times. Yeah. What do you think of the score in this movie? Because I feel like there's moments where it's like, it's very fitting, very appropriate. And then I'm like, am I watching Dune? Because I hear like, and I'm like, okay, what is going on here? So like, there's this like pivot between this structured score that tells one story and then sort of like a more elevated score that I think is designed to like sort of show us that there is another world out there that doesn't adhere to the tones that we're setting in this fake world. It just, I don't know that it worked for me as much as I wanted to. It's not that the music's bad. It feels that it's a little strange sometimes.
I just like the beat bop of like that early 1950s like style music, and especially when it's posed in the movie, but like the Dune style sound effects, it honestly, it worked for me. Like that final scene, that car chase through the desert, like I found it to be intense, but like we said, I had to step away from the programming side of things and realize like, this is kind of ridiculous. I did think that the music really helped that, but early on, you know, you talked about the egg cracking scene, like they really exaggerated the sound of that. And I enjoyed that. I thought that that was beneficial to the movie, where I think somebody else could see that scene and be like, why is it so like, eggs don't crack that loud. And I think that was kind of like the beginning of cracking this veil of what this reality was. So that's why the sound connected me, the music connected me. Like that just was a really beneficial part for my experience in this.
Yeah, I think the soundtrack actually is really good. I mean, you've got Dizzy Gillespie, Ray Charles. I mean, Harry Styles, the one who wrote the original song that they're sort of like singing to each other, the With You All the Time. So, like, that's original composition from him. But you got like the Platters, Little Anthony and the Imperials, the Chords. I forgot who it was. Connie Francis is in here too. You got a Phil Spector song performed by the Teddy Bears. So, like, really like good classic music selection to accompany this. So I feel like all of the aesthetic components of this movie are there. The costumes are great. You've got like really good looking Hollywood A-listers at like most of your key positions. Cars are great. Houses look gorgeous. Like the setting with that little cul-de-sac set against the mountain backdrop with the palm trees, gorgeous. Even like inside the club, all that stuff like looks good. So you're like sort of like sucked into this like quicksand that is the aesthetic appeal of this movie. And for me, that goes a long way because what I'm trying to do is like feel the movie. I don't necessarily want to sit there and sort of like surgically diagnose everything the first time I'm watching it. And I enjoyed it the first time I watched it. I was like, this isn't nearly as bad as people are saying. I can acknowledge that it has weaknesses, but I think it has enough strengths to make it an enjoyable film. And I do like seeing that, hey, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 74, which is like triple the critical score. So people generally like this movie, despite what seemed like a pretty well orchestrated machine to just focus on the bad press. So I don't know, like maybe Olivia like pissed somebody else off besides just these people. Maybe she like if you're pissing off like Shia LaBeouf's agent, Lawrence Pugh's agent, Dakota Johnson's agent, Keke Palmer's agent, like maybe all those people. Oh yeah, and Jason Sudeikis' agent maybe as well. They're like, just put hit pieces out. Just like every story you can possibly find about this movie like being a problem, just leak all that stuff to the press. And unfortunately, it's submarined a movie that didn't necessarily deserve it because I feel like at the time this came out, this was one of those movies that was trying to be like, the movies are back. Like it's been 2 years of being shut down, but this was one of the movies that was supposed to like catalyze audiences to go back to theaters. I mean, that's my perception of it, but I still feel that that's kind of accurate.
Yeah. I a lot of points you said there, I tend to agree with. I do. The thing is, I'm not connected to celebrity gossip at all. Like that, it's not in my purview. I'm not focused on it. But the fact that I even had a basic understanding of there was something bad happening surrounding this movie is enough for me to say, then it must have been really bad if I knew. Yeah. And I just wonder if that really messed with the entire production and the entire release of it, and took a movie that could have been phenomenally great. And I love this movie. It's not in my top 10. It's probably somewhere in my top 50 movies I've ever seen. Okay. I do love it that much, but I wonder in this other world where everything went right for it, could it have pushed for that top 10 up there with my, Silver Linings Playbook and Godfather and Oppenheimer? I don't think it would have touched Godfather or Oppenheimer, but just throwing out some movies in my top 10.
Well, I feel like there's a term that I used with my friend Sean from Film Club, who's been on the show a couple of times. And it's not a phrase that I coined, but I used to watch a lot of like HGTV when I was at the gym. And one of those shows in HGTV is Good Bones. And it's talking about basically like a house that has a good foundation and a good structure and how you maximize that house being like the best version of itself. And this to me is a movie that has good bones. And maybe it was rushed to production, like a house that's like, hey, we're going to cheap out on some of these things so that we can maximize profit and flip it kind of thing versus, hey, let's really focus on what makes this story the most unique and like the real voice of the director and the writers involved to maximize what this is in a way that doesn't just lean on, hey, this is 50s nostalgia with a sort of Black Mirror twist on it, which I think is like a easy enough like softball to hit and be like, yeah, okay, that's fairly accurate. I think the movie has a lot more to actually say than that, but I feel that it does struggle at times to effectively say those things.
Yeah, I wonder. So I guess I have this question for you. So Shia LaBeouf was supposed to play Jack.
Yeah,
that was the character. Let's say that happened. Do you think this movie would have been better or worse if it was Shia LaBeouf in Jack's role?
That's a good question because I feel like we get a very different Jack.
Yeah, very. He's a lot darker and a lot less polished than like Harry Styles is much cleaner, much like seems kinder. Like his visual is kinder than Shia LaBeouf.
I think the Jack that we get at the end of the movie where he's like long haired and bearded and kind of like unkempt and just gross. I think Shia would be better at that part of it. But I think the nice haircut, tall, looking good in the suit, driving the car version of it, I think Harry exceeds in that or excels in that because we kind of need him to be a little bit dumb to like suspend his own disbelief enough to buy into that, like he thinks that what he's doing is the right thing, where I feel like Shia does play that character darker and plays all of those interactions with a more menacing understanding of like, I know that I'm telling you that it's for love and I know that I'm saying it's for love, but really I'm self-aware that it is not. Where I think Harry plays it where it's like he is not really aware of his deception in the way that like we see it as the audience. So I think yeah, when they're in the simulation, Harry is probably better for it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you said. That Shia would have been this movie would have been much darker and much like more psychotic and scarier, just because like Shia just fits that like terrifying role. And I don't know if I could have seen Florence Pugh. Like I don't know if that would have worked for me, like seeing Shia and Florence. It would have taken some time for me to get used to that, where Harry, just the visual of Harry and Florence fits for me at least more.
Yeah, and I mean, at least what I had read about the rumors behind the scenes was that like Shia's intensity was an issue for Florence, and what happened was Olivia essentially threw her under the bus saying, oh, little Miss Flo just like needs to get in line with the program. So she was buying into Shia maybe being like intense and maybe a little bit too intense in some of the scenes. And she's like, this is off-putting to my star, but she just kind of has to like take it on the chin, which is kind of a weird message for like a female director making this story about this kind of subject matter, to then turn around and tell the male star of the film, like, I support your abusiveness.
Yeah.
Not to say that like I know the actual details, but like the context of what was put out there to the media was basically that, which I think really sunk Olivia's like stance with just the average person, is that like, oh, wow, you're going behind Florence's back to support him, knowing that like he's leaving the project for these reasons with this friction with her. So yeah, I'm sure that didn't do it any favors.
And directly opposing the message of the movie, or one of the key tenets of the movie at the same time.
Yeah. So, you know, a little murky there, but I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I was not involved. These are all rumors. This is shit that can be easily manipulated on the trivia pages of websites. There's no fact checking going on here. I can't fact check it that far up the ladder. So just keep that in mind. All you PR people that might listen to this, I'm not coming for anybody. But yeah, I think that's a good segue to jump into Critics Corner, because now we can actually hear all the shitty things that the critics really had to say about it, given the context that we just laid out for everybody. So let's take a look at the board. It is where did it go? 48 overall. We start with a 40 at the bottom of the ladder. And this is The Guardian. It's a UK newspaper. This is Peter Bradshaw says, directed by Olivia Wilde, it superciliously pinches ideas from other films without quite understanding how and why they worked in the first place. It spoils its own ending simply by unveiling it, and in doing so, shows that serious script work needed to be done on filling in the plot holes and problems in a fantastically silly twist reveal.
I mean, I love the twist reveal because I had literally no idea it was coming, so I would completely disagree with that. But I think that the start of it, which we've talked about a little bit too, it pulls from a lot of movies, and maybe it doesn't do it quite right in a lot of cases, or Olivia Wilde didn't realize she was pulling from those movies, or she was not privy to it. But yeah, the reveal, the twist, when I saw that made me sit up in my chair the first time, because like I said, I didn't know what this movie was.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like I knew obviously from the marketing that this world is not exactly the real world, but I wasn't sure if like, oh, did they just build like a cult commune out in the desert kind of thing, which would make sense and I think would actually work for the story they're telling here. It's like we're in the middle of the desert. The closest thing is not close. You don't have access to the internet or phones to call these outside places anyway. So you're isolated and it doesn't necessarily have to be a simulation. So I'm curious if the idea was that like Black Mirror is popular and having something that's sort of technologically superior to the 1950s, they wanted the juxtaposition of that, like a really hard shift from like this idyllic 1950s to, oh, hey, here she is as a powerful doctor, but she lives in an apartment with this grimy, almost like homeless looking man who can't feed himself and is like completely codependent on her, but also self-loathing and also kind of hates her at the same time. Like he's like, well, you didn't answer my text. And so like, I didn't know if I needed to feed myself or not. It's like, you're an adult man. Are you hungry? Just eat something.
And there was, sorry, this just reminded me of one final point for him and how he's completely worthless and helpless and not of any real, true, tangible value to Florence Pugh's character. There's at one point when she comes home, she runs her hand under the water and she's like, it's not hot. Did you call the guy? And he's like, call the guy. He couldn't come. Like, he can't even fix the hot water. Like, he can't cook for himself. He can't make money. He can't fix the hot water. Like, he has no redeeming value to her. That's just one extra point. Like the inability to fix hot water. Not that every guy in the world, every woman in the world can fix the hot water heater, but he has nothing. And that was just another example.
Yeah, like, you know, oh, I won't be out to fix it today. Be like, all right, well, like, can you tell me where the pilot light is so I can turn it back on myself or something? Like, he's got no problem solving skills, so he needs everything spoon fed to him in that way. And I think it says a lot about sort of Alice's character in that, like, she's willing to love him through all of these low points and still be like, there's something that I believe in there. And if you just actualize your potential, like you'll get another job. You know, that's sort of earlier on in their relationship as she's remembering, like he first lost his job. She's like, it's going to be okay. You're going to find another job. I got this. I got you. We're good. It's just you and me. And then like he betrays all of that. You know, and that's really the shitty part for him. And yeah, Shia probably would have excelled in being like the shittiest version of Jack that we see, unfortunately. Okay, so let's see. We've got 50 is kind of close. Let's jump. We've got The Film Stage or Empire Magazine. They're both in the same ballpark. Call it a 59.
Empire Magazine.
All right, Empire. This is Helen O'Hara. It says Pugh is superb, while Wilde confidently steps up to a bigger subject and budget to deliver a slick, beautiful film. It doesn't quite stick the landing, but its flight to that point is fascinating. I like that. Helen, yeah. I need to read more Helen O'Hara because I feel like she was fair while still sort of being critical, but not necessarily feeling the need to be mean and punch down for no reason. Like, you recognize the strengths, you recognize the weaknesses, and you're able to point to both of them confidently and give the reader easy access point to understanding like her view on the film.
Yeah, and I think the call out too that she has where she says Olivia Wilde stepped up to basically a different class of conversation as opposed to Booksmart, like that's an interesting take. I actually, right before the show, because now I'm interested, I went and looked at the new films that Olivia Wilde is directing or is rumored to be directing because I'm interested. Her two movies that she's directed, like Booksmart and this, I've enjoyed both of them. So whatever she comes out with next, I'll probably watch.
Yeah, me too. I'll take a chance. Why not?
Yeah.
I watch everything. So can't be that disappointing. Yeah. We're climbing the board. We go to USA Today. We're in the green now because Brian Truitt from USA Today gave it a 63. He says, while there's a definite The Stepford Wives sort of vibe, the narrative themes, which do lean timely, lack subtlety and nuance. Thankfully, Pugh keeps it watchable as a young married woman trying to keep her sanity amidst a ton of gaslighting and constant doo-wop songs. See, like, he gave it a higher score, but he's far more critical of it than Helen from Empire. So I'm always confused by these types of reviews where it's like, you liked the movie, you scored it positive on your own scale, yet you have meaner things to say about it than somebody else who rated it lower. So I don't know if that's like just a personality thing or what.
I'd be interested to see, like, statistically what's their average rating? Like, what do they on average rate a movie, or like the median of their ratings? Because I would presume his is probably higher than Helen's was, just how high he rates them. So he tends to be more critical, but give it a higher rating. Like, I have friends that have drinking beers and they're giving every beer a 5 out of 5. Like, that's what they do. They're like, oh, this beer's so good. And I'm like, you're not getting a 5 out of me unless you blow my socks off. It's same with like the way I rate movies on IMDb. I have 10 10s, 10 perfect scores. They're my top 10 movies. If I find a new top 10, one of those got to drop. So it's just a different way people rate things. So with these ratings, I'm always like interested in the person that's evaluating it and how they overall evaluate things.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, he's a critic. So he's, on the one hand, he's like, obviously I like movies enough to like write about them for a living. On the other hand, I know my job is to be critical. So I'm going to technically score it that I liked it, but then I will say something mean to fulfill my duties to my editor kind of thing. Let's see. We climbed the board and we go to Slash Film. It gave it a 65 out of 100. And that's Hoi Tran Bui. Says, don't worry, darling, wants to be transhumanist, not trash humanist, transhumanist Truman Show, but ends up playing out more like a mostly okay episode of Black Mirror. In fact, Don't Worry, Darling recycles a bunch of ideas and imagery from other films, which it attempts to imbue with a fresh, new sociopolitical angle. But it can't overcome its rather simplistic story and a disappointing reveal that ultimately doesn't match up to its buildup. There's another person that doesn't like the reveal at the end. I think they're, the best way I can sort of understand it is that you're tackling this like socio-political commentary in this film. And then by cutting to like, oh, it's a simulation, you're sort of not having the characters like work through it in a straight line. Like I said, if you were to take the same premise and just have it be like a town in the middle of the desert that's isolated, like a cult, like The Village, basically, like Shyamalan, right? But then she would get shit on for being like, you just ripped off The Village. So I think, and The Village is one of Shyamalan's like sort of on the beginning of the downward curve for a lot of people. For him, I still like it, but I understand the necessity to have the characters like work within the confines of the world that we're given. So to all of a sudden be like, hey, we're actually in 2022 or probably a little bit in the future to have this kind of technology available, that robs the character that you're like questioning her autonomy. It robs her autonomy of actually like solving the problem in the problem itself. It's like she has to go outside the problem and just, oh, I have the ability to leave the simulation kind of thing, rather than I'm tackling these issues one by one within the simulation.
Yeah, I'm a big twists. Like, I love twists in movies. I personally think this one did it very well. If they did the twist at the very end of the movie, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. Like, I don't think that this twist in Don't Worry, Darling could have worked the same way they did in Inception. Like, at the end of Inception, when he spins the top, like, that was the perfect way to end that movie. If he spun the top in the middle of the movie and it was still spinning, and that was like the reveal that he could possibly be in this dream state or not in this dream state, that movie would have been way worse than it is. For me, at least in this movie, if they took that twist and put it at the end, I just don't think I would have enjoyed it nearly as much.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, let's climb the board again. We get to a 67, and this is Entertainment Weekly. Leah Greenblatt says that the movie, whatever its pile of ideas about love, gender constructs, and modern living, never really transcends Stepford mood board pastiche. It's all nefarious and gorgeous, darling, and strictly nonsense in the end. So again, like, this is one of the meaner reviews that we've actually read, but it's a higher score than so many of these other people so far. And I always find it interesting where the writer feels the need to like use some sort of wordplay involving the title or something that's happening in the movie. It's like, I'm outsmarting this movie by saying it's all nefarious and gorgeous, darling. It's like, well, then you go fucking make the movie then, Leia. I mean, yeah, it's tough.
I mean, as somebody who I do like to write about sports, I'll try to find some wordplay where I can. And I often, if I'm referring to the Jets, I'll refer to them as the team from New Jersey all the time, just as like a quick jab, even in a long, very professionally written out article, because I like to throw a little bit of, goofiness in there at times. But at sometimes when you're being critical to an extent and just using that word in a critical way, it kind of comes off disingenuous.
Yeah, and I think the difference is that, like, as a Bills fan, like, we're tribal in that way with the Jets. We don't like them. And because of that, like, we want to tease them, make fun of them. But I think if I were to ask you, like, hey, give me an honest assessment of how good the Jets actually are or could be, you could do that and not like have to throw in jabs at them as an organization. Cause it's like, we all already know that. I saw somebody the other day that was like, hey, how many division titles or where do the Jets rank in division titles in the AFC East? And it was like, not even fourth, they're fifth. So like, it's it's an easy punching bag for other teams in the division. And we are sort of designed to want to have that rivalry with them. But I think, as a football fan, which I know that you are, you could give an honest assessment of the Jets and not have it be like mean spirited in any way. You can tease them and not have it come across like sort of as mean spirited as this is.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like if you're writing a review about a movie, for instance, you make really good points here. If you're writing a review about the movie, I think you can play with the wordplay a bit, but at some point you have to be truthful in nature and be kind of professional in that way instead of, a Reddit blog that I'll occasionally post and be like, haha, the New Jersey Jets,
Yeah, I mean, to call it like transcending Stepford mood board pastiche is like you like the sound of your own voice, I'm guessing a little bit, and you want to like prove that you're a clever writer by doing this, where you could just give an honest assessment and not like, this is like almost like a New York Times article where it's like, we really want to be wordy just for the sake of the brand on the front of the review. So not great, but hey, she gave it a 67. So I'll take it. It ups the overall score, but we do get to finish with an 80, which is nice. So we get a nice high score on the board. And this is from the Telegraph. I'm not sure where that's from. It's not listed, but this is Robbie Collin. Says things keep barreling along thanks to both Pugh and the plot's punchy critique of a certain recent trends in the internet's more testosterone-rattled dark corners. Incels, with a smudgy red lipstick grin, Don't Worry Darling drags them out into the blazing desert light. So this is like, hey, this is someone who's praising the movie for doing all of the things that we felt that it is doing, and like sort of latched on to the timeliness of it, which one of these other reviews pointed to. That's like, oh, this is a more timely version of some of these other older stories, and it's done so with intent, maybe not so subtly, but like, I don't think every movie has to be handled with subtlety. It depends on the subject matter, and I think the characters here handle the subtlety better than maybe the overall messaging of the film, because like we said, like we talked a lot about just Harry Styles' performance and what he brings and the kind of person that Jack is and what that person would look like with a different actor at the helm. And I don't know if anybody has spent that much time or energy talking about Harry Styles in this movie, aside from him, maybe having spat on Chris Pine at whatever film festival that was, which, it was debunked, of course, but that's where the energy went, was like, oh, this is the director's boyfriend and he's getting this showcase because of that. And I mean, yeah, probably all of that is true. But for the purposes of what he is there to do, he doesn't do a bad job. And he helps, I think, maybe deliver the message a little bit more soft-handedly than had it been someone like Shia, who I think, yes, would play the character as someone who's acting with malice, where this doesn't seem like this version of Jack is necessarily as malicious. At least he doesn't believe he is.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of reasons you just laid out, I think that there's a lot of people that just, and I probably said this a couple times now, didn't give this movie a fair shake or still haven't seen it because they bought into all this drama about it. And they're like, I'm not going to see it for whatever stance. I personally think it's worth seeing. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I'll probably end up watching it here by the end of June again, just because it's something I enjoy to put on and watch. And every time the phone goes down, and that's how I know it's one of my movies that I can, pretty confidently put in my top 50 all the time.
Hey, that's high praise, man. So, that wraps up Critics Corner. I think we got through like 5 or 6 of those reviews. So we're good there. And, now is sort of the time in the show where I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Yep.
Number 1 is going to be the gateway drug question. So we're not talking actual gateway drugs, but and that's a different conversation. But for the purposes of this movie, if someone hasn't seen this movie yet, like, what's a good movie that you would recommend to sort of like open the doors for them to be able to experience this movie?
Hi, man. I feel like this is almost cheating, but because we brought, like, it's Truman Show, I really do connect it. Like, we brought up Stepford Wives, which I think is one you could hit, but Truman Show really hits this one, and Truman Show does the reveal. Not to give, I'm not spoiling Truman Show. If you haven't seen Truman Show by now,
30 years old.
Yeah, they do the reveal way closer to the end, but it's the same buildup. There's things happening where it's like, is this real life? Is this real life? That's the same thing with this movie, and I think they build in a similar manner, and it's pretty intense, I think.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I think, Olivia Wilde obviously took a lot of inspiration for that, admitted to taking a lot of inspiration from Truman Show. Yeah, I think for me, I would stick with The Village because it is similar that this society has made itself insular. They, rather than a simulation, they have people like in costumes pretending to be monsters at the outskirts of town to keep everybody in the town. So they've built these physical borders, metaphysical borders in this movie. And they have reverted back to like a village from, I guess, like the 1800s kind of lifestyle. So it is sort of looking at the idea of taking people from the modern era that want to simplify their lives and the reasons for doing that, and then the lengths that you will go to protect this false existence. So it's like all those people in the village just could have been like, let's just go be Amish, right? Like you can exist that way and you don't have to do all these other things. You don't have to have monsters in the woods. You just commit to being Amish. But I think when they're like, hey, we're going to start families, we're going to have kids, we're going to start to grow our society, we can't have them wandering out into the woods and see a car. So, all right, we're going to put monsters out there. And it comes with like a twist at the end because it's Shyamalan. So I think that's a good one for people that are maybe on the fence with something like this.
Yeah, I hadn't seen The Village in a long time, so I just looked up my rating right in line with Don't Worry, Darling. Like I have it right 8 out of 10 for me for both of them. So yeah, that is probably a very good gateway to this one too.
Yeah, I feel like I need to go back and watch that because the first time I had seen it, it was like, okay, Sixth Sense was good. So many people like talk shit about everything that kind of came after that, even though like people like, hey, if he still makes a movie, people are gonna go watch it because you always want to know, like, is he gonna hit a home run again? Is this gonna be like a ground out? Is he gonna like a hard liner to first? What's happening here? So I'm always interested to watch him his at bats, so to speak.
Sure.
And, one of the recent ones was Old, which I saw and I was like, I like the concept. It seems kind of like a short story. People didn't like it. And now a couple years down the line, it's like, this movie's amazing kind of thing is happening. So I'm like, oh, more people are actually seeing it now. So that initial like incubation period of like how it does in theaters is not really representative anymore of where a movie ultimately finishes, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I've had this conversation with other friends in the film club of this notion that like film greatness is not something that can sort of be felt in the acute phase, right? Because if you like a movie that you just went to see, it's going to be like, oh, it's great. This movie's amazing. Performances, yada, yada. But again, like when we look at films that are great historically, they're films that stand the test of time. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, this movie is still great 50 years down the line, 70 years down the line, 40 years down the line, whatever it may be. And those films have the benefit of 40, 50, 60, 70 years of history saying that this movie is great, where a movie that came out today that might be great doesn't have the benefit of that, plus is working against the narrative of the past 70 years saying all these other films are great. This is the bar you need to ascend to. True. So, yeah, it's a little bit unfair, but that's why that sort of quote about like no bad movies, just 20 years. So I think, we'll see what Old looks like in 20 years and what this looks like in 20 years. And like if we're moving towards like all AI films at this point, like, we may be latching onto this stuff. And it's like, this is the last era. The 2020s is the last era of film that was made by human beings. And we're going to be so attached to it. I don't want to like entertain that, but seeing Ashton Kutcher all over Twitter today, I know you said you don't engage in celebrity gossip, but he was basically shilling the Sora AI. Like, I was like, this is a passionless speech that doesn't make logical sense. He's like, well, if I could just come up with an idea and then the robot writes the script and the robot makes all the images, but like then he's calling it like my idea and it has to be really good or else people won't watch it. But it's like, then it's, how is that your thing anymore? Yeah. Like you really didn't do anything other than come up with an idea, which, people get story credits and scripts and stuff. But this idea of like, why he criticizes, why would you go out and like film an exterior shot of a house when you could just tell the machine to give you an exterior shot of the house. But then in the same breath is like, oh yeah, come see the movie that I made that's great, that I just like told the machine my idea and it did all of the work for me with no creative input. It's like you can't have those two things coexist. And it just felt like this dead, completely, hollow sales pitch for this Sora AI technology. And yeah, it just he's getting roasted today on social media. So
I could probably do a whole show on the reasons I despise AI, and I have zero interest in it being a part of our everyday life. Again, that's the opinion of one person, that person being me. But yeah, AI is, I'm not a fan of AI. I'll say that.
Well, maybe we'll come back and do that episode on the other show at some point in the future, because I am fascinated by AI, but I don't really want it to be making things that I consume on a regular basis. I did actually watch like the weird balloon head AI movie that was like a short film that came out like couple months ago, and I was like, okay, like it's impressive that a machine has the capability to like make something look like this, but other than that, like the shit is boring. Like it's not interesting. So like that's where it sort of loses its ability to be functional. So I think for something like storyboarding, something for your own sake, right? Like, hey, I don't know how to draw. I want some sort of visual representation of my idea, so that way I can like lay it out for working on something in the future. That makes sense. But also like, hey, now a storyboard artist has lost their job because of that. So these are, I think they're like real questions to ask. But in my job, my boss is like, use AI. She's like, your time is more valuable than wasting it on that shit. Like, have fucking Chat GPT do it. Who cares? Yeah. And I'm like, because I don't work in a creative industry like that. So it's like, hey, I need a document drafted that like gives me A, B, and C. And I'm like, really, I use it more for like, hey, teach me a subject that I don't understand. I'm like, explain this to me in a way that I can like help somebody else learn it, kind of thing. And I don't use it that often, but being empowered by my employer to sort of like save my own time by doing those kinds of things is interesting, because that's where a lot of industries are going to go in the future, is time saving techniques for that reason. So if my boss is like, do it, then I'm like, oh, okay, I have no reason not to. As long as I don't teach it to like do my job for me, then then we're safe. But I have a friend who is a programmer also, who he worked for Blizzard and Activision and Insomniac, I think was the studio, game studio. So he worked for a lot of these game studios, and now he does a lot of sort of like IT coding type of stuff. But he told me at one point, he's like, he just makes a program that like does his job, and like, I just turn it on and then I just observe it, make sure it doesn't make mistakes. And like, so he was like bored and he switches jobs every like 6 to 12 months. And I'm like, well, no wonder.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, now that we're at the end, I'm going to give you the opportunity to go ahead and plug any and everything that you're working on. I know, I don't know if you still do the Process on Tap podcast. I know that was a thing from a couple years ago when we first sort of made one another's acquaintance. But you're doing the Cover One thing now. And I know you said you got a new job as well. I don't know if that's related to football stuff, because I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, maybe you just do analytics for the Bills now, because I think you would love that. And you said you love the job. So lines up.
I'll plug. I'll plug a couple of things. I'll tell you live. My new job is in beer. I'll tell you offline more details about it. But as for things to plug, like you said, so I do write for Cover One. Those articles will come out later in the summer and into the season. But every Monday at 7 p.m., I do have a podcast called the Cover One Roundup, 7 to 8, 9 o'clock. Usually it goes till 9. And usually we're talking about Bills specific stuff. Sometimes we'll hit NFL stuff, but that's a very different subject than we spoke about tonight. But I will say this. I do hope that I can come back on a show at some point sooner than like the 2 years we've been planning this, because I absolutely love this. I love talking about movies, and I like talking about movies with somebody as passionate as you are about them, because you exposed some different ideas to me today, some different ways to interpret things, and I sincerely appreciate that.
Oh, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. Like I said, I've been wanting this for since you joined the film club, I was like, you're one of the first people that I was like, I want to be a part of this like film project that I'm building out on social media. And I'm glad that you stayed around. I mean, I know you get busy. A lot of people get busy. So I'm not like keeping attendance or anything. I wish you could be there every Saturday, but there's times where I don't want to be there every Saturday. I'm like, oh man, it's 7 a.m. Did I decide to do this again? So the door is always open for you to come back and talk to me anytime. You can talk about AI. We can talk about another movie. We can talk Bills football, of course. Like that, the door is always open for any of that stuff. So please just let me know. If not, I will try to remind myself to reach out to you on a semi-regular interval to just be like, hey, are you available? Are you available? Because it's like we interact on Twitter like all the time. But it's mostly like you talking football, and I jump into the comments and say something snarky and funny, hopefully, and we move on from there. But it's really nice to sit down and talk with you one-on-one again. I mean, it's been a really long time. I don't think we've ever sat down and like spoken face-to-face one-on-one for any extended period of time. I've jumped in some spaces. I know after the Rams game when we were the Bills Rams out here. Season opener a couple years ago, you were hosting a space as we were sort of waiting for our Uber to come pick us up, and I was like, "Oh, look at that! They're hosting a space. Let me hop in here." Football season's almost here, so we'll have plenty to talk about if you want to do that. Sure. There are Buffalo specific movies too. Like if we really wanted to dive into it, I would have to look them up, but I know one of them is Buffalo that came out with Zoe something.
Yeah, that's a bad movie I love too.
Okay, there we go. Look at that. We've already got the next one lined up. So I didn't get a chance to see it, but when I was doing like my movie sort of breakdown for the week and like what's coming out, I'm like, oh, I have to see this.
Yes.
So I haven't seen it yet, which is a little disappointing, but I will circle back to that at your request.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, same here, man.
Have a good night.
You too.
My immense thanks to Hans. It was such a treat to get him on the show after we've been friends for a number of years now. Of course, we got some football chat in there, but it was really wonderful to sit down and talk with him again in a long-form discussion about film. If you want to talk movies or football, you can find Hans on X at Uber Hansen, spelled just like it sounds, but I'm going to put that up in the show notes for you. And of course, thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to this episode. I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to podcasts, and I appreciate you spending your time with us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you do, please consider leaving a rating on your podcast platform of choice and telling a friend about it. And the support page is now live over at ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/badmovieswelove. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have a bad movie you love or would like to be a guest on the show, you can contact me at badmovieswelove@thesheist.com or at badmovieswelove on Twitter and Instagram, and that's love with an LUV on the socials. And until next time, take care, be well, and have fun however you get your movies.